will the transfer portal impact Auburn's quarterback room?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's a Charlie Tuesday. That means we're joined by Auburn message board legend Charlie 5, and portal season is upon us, though it doesn't officially open until next week. You're already starting to see announcements, and some schools are able to if their head coach leaves. And so you're already seeing some guys enter the portal, Charlie 5. But this is going to impact Auburn's roster from top to bottom. But today, when looking at the quarterback position, this was a room a year ago where Auburn desperately needed somebody in the first window. It didn't happen. They didn't get Payton Thorne until after spring. That cannot happen again. I think we saw how valuable it would be to go through spring. We tried to downplay it a year ago. We were wrong. The eventual starting quarterback needs to be going through spring. And so you look at it, Payton Thorne, the vibe right now is Payton Thorne staying. I don't know about Holden Geriner. I don't know about Robby Ashford. But it just kind of feels like it's going to be Payton versus someone going into spring, Charlie 5.
I think that's a very smart and heady move by Payton as well, because you get to go through spring and you get to compete and kind of see where you stand, and then you still have the spring window where if it just doesn't seem like it's going to work out and you want to see what's out there, you got that opportunity. Then like, what happens if you bring in some of these top notch? You don't get to throw to them. I guess Cam Coleman, I think he's an early enrollee, so you get to add him. What if you go add one or two extra big time portal wide receivers, and you get to throw with them? I mean, I'm not so sure that wide receiver wasn't a bigger reason that Payton Thorne struggled at times than it was Payton Thorne in general. Whether it was lack of separation, size, speed, whatever it was, I'm not so sure. It's 100% on Payton. I don't think he was great at times, and I think some of his ability hindered us a good bit. But maybe a lot of that's on the wide receivers too. So I think it's a really smart move. I'm like, me and you joked about it. Selfishly, we were kind of hoping that maybe if you bring in a portal guy, there's a chance that everybody leaves, and then Hank Brown starts the bowl game, and we go try to win.
That would have been awesome. That'd be awesome. I don't think it's going to happen anymore, but
no, I don't either.
That would have been awesome, because it makes sense for all three of those guys to transfer, kind of for different reasons. But I think Payton's going to stay. So Thorne
earned a ton of respect for me for how hard he's ran the ball, something that I did not think he could actually do. Running for over almost 300 yards against Alabama with him as the guy.
Sure,
hard run, scrambling, putting your head down. The dude played so hard, so hard. So yeah. I'm glad he's going to stick around, and at least, hey, what a backup if he does stay and comes in second. What a backup, especially with what Hugh asked of the quarterbacks to run. Somebody could get dinged up in a heartbeat. What a backup to have. I don't know. Thorne does make this team better. He has limitations. He does make this team better, and him being on the roster makes us better.
Let's go through a few hypotheticals here.
All right.
Let's just go through the message board wish lists that have kind of emerged at Auburn's quarterback position.
I love hypotheticals. I love the portal, and I really love portal hypotheticals. So let's go.
Let's do it. Who wins the quarterback battle between Payton Thorne, or these are all hypotheticals, or Riley Leonard, who's currently at Duke?
I would think it would have to be Riley Leonard. I think he's a little bit more athletic. Accuracy. They've kind of had similar, I guess, accuracy. Riley elevates. He seems to elevate guys. At Duke, you're just not blessed with a huge talent pool, and he's beat your Clemsons, beat your top teams in the ACC. And he was within if he doesn't sprain his ankle on a sack against Notre Dame, they probably beat Notre Dame this year. So
maybe, maybe.
I think I would love. I think Riley Leonard would win that competition.
I love the investigative prowess of everyone on the internet with finding like that his girlfriend went to, like she goes to Auburn. I think that was hilarious. All right, another hypothetical. Seth Hennigan, who is at Memphis right now. That is another name that I'm seeing in several places.
Yeah, so like he obviously still has his coach, so I don't know if he's made it known or whatever that he might be interested, but yeah, he could be somebody. He gives me a big Thorne vibe. Like he's been like so incredibly consistent all 3 years. He's thrown for right at 3,500 yards 3 years in a row, close to over 25 touchdowns, mid 60s completion percentage, but not a lot of not a lot of running, not a lot of just not a lot out there watching him run the ball. And he looks a lot like Payton Thorne and pads, like the way they throw the ball, the way they move. So maybe if you have two of those guys pushing each other, I don't know who wins that competition. I feel like probably maybe give Seth the edge, but then again, you got Thorne here for another year in the system with hopefully some better wide receivers. Maybe that's just a scenario where they push each other and they're similar quarterbacks. So it's not like a Robby and Payton scenario where you got two totally different offenses. You got the same offense you run by two very similar quarterbacks with similar attributes. Yeah. That could be a fun battle to watch.
All right. What if Auburn goes back to Liberty? They got Hugh Freeze a year ago. What if they get Caden Salter, who has been awesome? He has been awesome.
He has. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like if you get better receivers, Thorne wins that battle. I'm
with you. I get that.
Salter's not incredibly accurate. He's insanely mobile. So does that open up the offense a little bit more where it creates different passing lanes? That goes back to it's two different. It kind of can be two different offenses again. It's not the same. You know what I mean? Like you got two different styles of offense. I think possibly Thorne could win that. I think Thorne could win that battle.
Sure. Yeah. So we will certainly see what happens, but you got to think Auburn they have to go get a quarterback, especially.
I think another one real quick. I think another one to watch, Tulane, Willie Fritz, Houston just fired Dana Holgerson, and heck, by the time you're listening to this, they may have already hired a new coach. Who knows? But Willie Fritz is a Texas guy, coach at Sam Houston State, Blinn Junior College, a lot of connections in Texas. Houston would be a double of his salary. If Willie Fritz leaves, does that put Michael Pratt back on the table? Like, or is Michael Pratt back as an option? That's somebody that
would be great. I mean, Michael Pratt I think would be awesome. I think he would win that battle with Payton Thorne. But I think I saw that he accepted a Senior Bowl invite. So I don't even know if that's really an option for him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But regardless, you got to think Auburn's going to get another quarterback just because from a number standpoint, they have to. They're going to lose Holden Geriner, I think. I'm predicting Holden to transfer. I haven't heard anything otherwise to convince me that he's going to stay. And then Robby, I think, will eventually transfer. He doesn't graduate. I wouldn't be shocked if he stayed, went through spring, and then transferred after. We saw TJ Finley do that a year ago because he's got to graduate in order to transfer since he already used his first transfer when he came from Oregon to here. And so I think they may go into spring with extra quarterbacks, and then everything I think may even out after that. So I'm excited to see what all that actually looks like.
Absolutely. Dream scenario, if you can get a Riley Leonard. I mean, Riley Leonard is grown up Walker White. That's all. They are literally, they almost even look like they could be related. They're grown up. He's a grown up version, fully developed version of Walker White. And I cannot imagine a more seamless transition if Walker's the guy and he gets in here, red shirts, plays behind Riley, and then steps in later. I think that would be a dream scenario.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. I think that'd be a great situation. And it's a nice combination of doing what's best for now and doing what's best for the future. Because originally when Payton committed, we were all kind of wondering what's the timeline look like. And they were like, oh, he's got 2 years of eligibility. And so do you get 2 years of Thorne and then transition to Walker White, assuming he beats out Hank Brown in a year or so? And we'll see. We'll certainly see what all that looks like moving forward. So who else could be on the way out for these Auburn Tigers. We discuss in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is the best place to wager on all of your sports action. As the weather gets colder, the offers on FanDuel are still very, very hot. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Put it all on Auburn basketball at this point. Why not? What could possibly go wrong? So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app's easy to use. Of course, you can use that bonus cash on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Whether when you're hiring for your small business, you want to make sure to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to review. That's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion, with a B, professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Charlie 5, our guest, Auburn message board legend, looking across this roster, the wide receiver room, based off of some reports, some just kind of feel. I'm not expecting Amari Kelly to return. In fact, Mike G of the War Report put that out in a report in a tweet yesterday. Charlie 5. Cam Brown, talking to a few folks, they're not expecting him back. We'll certainly see what happens when that becomes official next week, if it does become official next week. Javarius Johnson, to me, is a tricky one because he had such a good Iron Bowl, and when he's been healthy, he's been so solid. But I've heard from folks close to Javarius Johnson that he wants a fresh start somewhere else. I don't blame him. But those three guys leaving the wide receiver room in combination with Hooks, Jair Shorter, and Nick Martin losing eligibility, running out of eligibility, that makes this wide receiver room look vastly different.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to use this term, but possibly could be addition by subtraction. I mean, you're going to have to add bodies, but for whatever reason, Amari Kelly, had struggled with drops. You got Cam Brown, who looks just unbelievable in pads, looks unbelievable physically, but it's either a drop pass thing or run the wrong route thing. I don't really understand. I don't really understand that one because he was a huge spring name that we in early fall camp that we heard about. And then Javarius Johnson's probably the only one that really hurts because I think he could be he could be a weapon, and obviously he's a senior. He'd be a senior, so that the biggest oldest in the room. So Hooks, obviously, you don't lose anything there. You don't really lose anything with Shorter, who only had one catch all year. And then obviously Nick Martin as well. So you're not really, even though you're losing 5 guys, you're not losing hardly any production outside of Javarius Johnson. So,
right. And then I guess the only other guys that could transfer that we haven't talked about, Coy Moore, who knows? If I was him, I would not blame him if he wanted to restart somewhere else. And then Malcolm Johnson Jr. Yeah, Ken Coyley. It just depends when he graduates. He graduates. And then Malcolm Johnson Jr., he could use his transfer whenever he wants if he felt like there was something else out there. We already talked about Cam Brown and Amari Kelly. Jay Fair would be the last one that we haven't discussed.
I think you work really hard to keep Jay Fair because Jay Fair is the beefed up version of Javarius Johnson, and I think he could be a really good player. I think you try really, really hard to not lose him, even though
I think you can make the argument Jay Fair's almost I think he's very important to keep in that wide receiver room, also from a leadership standpoint, because that room's about to get pretty young, especially if you flip a few guys down the stretch here. There's potentially going to be 5 freshman receivers next year. Yeah. You want a leader in that room, and I'm okay if that leader is Jay Fair. There's no question about it.
Yeah, because I think even if, let's say hypothetically you land Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams, and you got those 5 wide receivers.
Oh my gosh.
You're only bringing in 2 of those in fall. I think that'd be Cam Coleman, and it's either Bryce Kane or Malcolm Simmons, but I think it's possibly Bryce Kane. So you're going to have mega young dudes, and that's about all you have unless you.
How would you define mega young?
Like your first, like guys. When I say mega young, I'm talking about like you have to play them, and they get here 3 months prior or 2.5 months prior to you kicking off. Like to me, that's mega young. Like it's almost like you get a whole nother year when they get here in January and they can go through spring and go through the workouts. So even if you do add those 5 incredible wide receivers, you only get 2 of them early, like to start developing. So everybody's coming in super green. So you got to have Jay Ferris. I think Jay Ferris is humongously important. Like he is very important to keep. If you got to keep anybody in that room, he's a huge one to keep.
Yeah, I also do wonder if they treat Rivaldo Fairweather more like a tight end or a receiver next year versus a tight end, assuming he stays, because I think they like Micah Riley-Ducker in that role. And so it's a way to kind of get more tight ends on the field because I think that's the position group they feel so good about. Curious to see how they use Rivaldo this offseason.
I love my man Rivaldo, but we got to catch the ball.
He had a bad iron
ball. I mean, come on, man. You're too good. You're too good for that to happen. Come on.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Jug machine all summer.
If he catches just one of those 2, like it's a different game.
Yeah.
It's a different game. Oh, well. All right. So, yeah, I mean, I think resetting the quarterback room and the wide receiver room, I think it could change the entire look of this offense, Charlie 5.
Yeah. I especially, offense for sure. You're going to have to add a couple of guys. I think you're going to have some plug and play guys on the offensive line. You may only have to get 1 or 2 though, instead of 5. So
what do you think Dylan Wade does?
I think he stays. I think we keep him. I don't think he had a spectacular enough year at 6'4" to be a high draft pick tackle. I think and then guards just don't seem to ever really go incredibly high unless they're the top of the line. I think he can get a good NIL package and hang around for 1 more year and play 2 years at the top. And that offensive line, I felt, got better and better. And he's probably arguably the best player on the line. So you do that 2 years in a row with Connor Lew there with you. And then, you plug and play, like I said, plug and play a couple of guys and keep getting better. You never know.
Yeah. And
I think he stays though.
I don't think the NFL is going to draft him as a tackle. I just don't. No. And Auburn has him listed at 6'3". I don't think the NFL at a combine or a pro day is going to measure him at 6'3". I bet he's probably 6'2". And it's just hard to play tackle at 6'2" in the NFL. So to me, if he comes back, you have him at left tackle again. At left guard, you could either rock with Dylan Cinda or Jaden Muskrat. We'll see. At center, that's obvious, Connor Lew. We already mentioned the guards there. And then at right tackle, you keep Xavion Miller, Tutal Miller there, who I think was probably a little ahead of schedule anyway. I don't think they expected him to play until this season. So the fact that he already has a full season worth of reps, I think is huge for his development. Because everybody I talked to about Xavion Miller through spring was like, he's good. He's just raw. It's going to take time. So I think he's actually a little ahead of schedule. I think this is when they expected him to come in. So
and I think he has 2 more years left.
I think that's right.
If I'm not mistaken. So
I think you're right. I think he's an NFL candidate after this season. I think he's going to have that kind of jump just talking to folks close to the situation. But to me, I think Auburn can go out and get a guard. I don't think that's that crazy of a thing to look at. And they've already offered a few guys. They offered the guy from Southern Miss who entered the portal. And so we'll see. He picked up like 3 or 4 offers like within minutes. There's a story up at auburndaily.com about him. But yeah, so just the situation Auburn is in on the offensive line now versus a year ago is so refreshingly different. It's so different from this time a year ago.
Absolutely. And you got a chance. DeAndre Carter, he started for 4 years at one of the top colleges, top high schools that's not quite one step below college. He started for 4 years. Yeah. So like he's extremely advanced. Like, could he come in and be ready to play? then you had some dude you brought in last year, Tyler Johnston, who looks incredible in pads. Like, what does his development look like at tackle? And then, you know, if you can bring in one or two other, you just called out the starting offensive line, but like if you could bring one or two other freshmen or sophomore portal guys, guys, you know.
Here's what we're looking at. Jeremiah Wright. We'll see if he leaves or not. I've talked to a few folks that thinks he will leave, so we'll see. We'll see on Jeremiah Wright.
He struggled this year.
Tate Johnson. Hugh Freeze loved Tate Johnson in spring. You know, maybe could he be a serviceable guard? I don't know. EJ Harris, Clay Whedon, Braden Joyner. It would not shock me if Braden Joyner put it together. Then you mentioned Tyler Johnson, and then Dylan Cinda. So then DeAndre Carter's coming in. So that's where we're looking at.
And then you could add, there's still two more you're trying to add there. I think one of them is going to be a raw prospect that's going to take some development. And then, you know,
Favor Edwin, is that who you're referring to?
Yeah, Favor Edwin. And then if you can get Cam Eccles, that's a dude that's going to be another guy that's going to be hard to keep off the field. So
you think Auburn lands Eccles? I don't feel good about that one.
He had some quotes after Elko was hired. I don't know if they're political statements or if it, like, you know what I'm saying, they're just like company statements, or if they're legit. I have a hard time buying that he even knows who Mike Elko is. So I mean, maybe he meant it. Maybe he thinks it's a great hire, and you know, whatever. But they're not going to give up. And Hugh Freeze in home is from what I understand, is a sight to be seen. So
sure,
you know, let Hugh get in home and see what happens.
Yeah, and he was at the Iron Bowl, so he saw it all up close and personal this past weekend. So we will see. All right, let's just take a peek on the defensive side of how this portal season could impact Auburn's defense. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place and the best way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings rolled in. Prize Picks is the most fun I've ever had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. Now I can play basketball as well. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and you place your entry. It takes like 30 seconds. It takes like 30 seconds to fill out an entry, and it's very, very fun. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. You can download their app. Their app is free. And when you make that first deposit, use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Charlie 5, looking at the defense. Obviously, they're going to have to address the departure of Marcus Harris. I don't think there's a clear replacement for that. I don't feel good about Rogers returning. So you got to fix that, I think, via the portal immediately. I don't think there's a clear guy behind them that's ready to step in. And then I think you've got to add another edge rusher. Regardless, even if the guys stay, even if McLeod and Sings stay, you can't roll in there with just those 2 guys, Brent Williams, Jamonta Waller, and Joseph Phillips. You can't do that. So to me, I think on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to have to do a lot. They're going to have to address the defensive front. Linebacker, I think, is okay. They may look, but I think they're okay if they don't get a linebacker. And then at corner and safety, I think they're going to have to add some bodies. So to me, they're going to have to do a lot on the defensive side of the ball this upcoming December.
Defense is going to be, the defensive portal is going to be crucial. I mean, you have to, I mean, you got Jason Jones on the interior. You don't have, I don't feel like you have a playmaker beside him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like you have that guy you can pair with him at period. So you're going to have to bring in at least that. And I'm with you. You're talking at least 10 guys, maybe more. I feel like on the defensive side, who's going to play safety? Like who's going to play safety? You have your JUCO guy coming in, and then you have some young dudes that are unproven. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if you don't have to go out and find you a fight like heavy for a top safety. Corner, you don't have much. You're going to be really young. You have some talented guys coming in, but you got Kay and Lee, and I think possibly the whole issues with JD Rim have been smoothed over. So
that's huge. I missed that.
That could be your two guys there. And I think both of those dudes are talented. But yeah, I mean, you're talking probably at least three DBs and, at least I think four total linemen if you count edge, an edge, a strong side defensive end, and then like somebody to go, maybe go in the middle, or maybe two guys to go in the middle, like maybe you find you another Lawrence Johnson, who could come in and like we had this year, come off the bench and then play and contribute and do well when you come in. I'm hoping maybe, I've heard the same stuff you've heard about Justin Rogers, possibly could he be looking to go somewhere else? I guess he'd be a grad transfer. I mean, maybe that's not the case. Maybe you work and try. Maybe there's some guys you have to recruit your roster to stay. I don't know. But there's a lot of work to be done on defense.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there's dudes, right, that I think could step up, like Donovan Kaufman. I can't imagine him going to the league, and he doesn't seem like a guy who would transfer. He's got to be happy with his playing time. So
yeah,
can he take a bigger role? Zion Puckett, I believe he'll be a super senior if that's the case. So, he played a bunch. Caleb Wooden, Champ Anthony played more as the season went on. It felt like. I think he's super athletic. He's really rangy. Can he take a step forward at safety? Then you mentioned Laquan Robinson. He's the JUCO product that'll be coming in hopefully soon and probably have the chance to start. So I don't know. There's a lot of names. There's a lot of names where you can talk yourself into them kind of taking that next step forward. They're just going to have to do it.
I think you got to pay Keontae Scott whatever it takes to come back to. I think he will, but I think you got to pay him whatever it takes to come back. He's incredible, and he's the leader. He's got a very good chance to be the leader of that whole defense. Definitely the defensive back room, but I mean, he's got a chance to be the leader of that whole defense.
Yeah, him and Eugene Asante could be the dudes. If
those two guys, you pay whatever. Eugene Asante, I think I've seen where he could possibly be leaning to going pro. Like, I feel like you got to pay those two guys whatever it takes.
I think you go all three levels. I think you throw in Jalen McLeod as well.
Yeah, I mean, those three guys you got to have.
I'm with you, dude.
Got to have.
I'm with you. You feel so much better about this defense if the leader at each level kind of comes back. So we'll see. Charlie 5, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter at @the_Charlie_5 in the Locked On Auburn Discord every single day. AuburnLive.com, the corner message board, or weekly on the Dad Bod Golf Pod.
Yeah, you can find all my written work at auburndaily.com, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.